couple months ago, God gave me a revelation about how what I fear the most or who I fear the most is really myself. And that from the beginning of when my trauma started to hit me or when comments started to affect me, I never actually feared other people's judgment. I actually began to fear my own. Now, fearing your own judgment comes from, help me, Holy Spirit. Fearing your own judgment comes from constantly judging other people, constantly being critical. And when we are like that on the outside towards other people, as much as we think we can never be like that on the inside, constant judgment, constant analyzation of others, constant criticals about other people makes us criticize ourselves, makes us analyze ourselves. And if we can do it to people who we don't know, then we can do it to ourselves at a T. And so I have been my worst enemy for years. And I'm just realizing how much it really does affect me and how bad it really has become. And I'm just praying to be freed from this. So I asked God, I'm like, I don't know if I need therapy. I don't know if I need to talk to somebody about this. Like, what do I do? And he said, this is a spiritual thing. And so I said, how could I overcome the old version of me? Because in your word, it says that the old things and the things of the old have passed away and a new thing is here. And so we should put off our old selves. And I truly believe I've put off my old self in every single way that I possibly could, except that mindset is still there. And I truly feel like your mindset, it's the hardest thing to change, because when you have believed something for so long, when you have come into agreement with something for so long, when you have felt like you've almost been tied down to something for so long, it is so hard to come out of agreement with that thing. And it's a stronghold. That's exactly what it is. It's a stronghold. And even like, for example, today, one of my friends in my class kept crossing a boundary of just not respecting my personal space. Like every single time I was on my phone, he's looking over my shoulder, looking at what I'm doing on my phone. And I'm not doing anything bad on my phone. It's just like he's in my personal space. He's not respecting my privacy. Every time I'm doing something or typing something on my laptop, he's asking me about it. And it's a very big irritation of mine because, number one, leave me alone. And number two, you don't need to know everything I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And why can't you just sit quietly and do your own work? Like, why are you worried about what I'm doing? So it's a huge irritation for me. And I kept telling God, I'm like, I'm so irritated with this person. Like, they keep doing this and it's so annoying. And I was telling God, and I was like, I wish this person could just read the room. And if you don't know what read the room means, it means I wish this person could just look around, observe what's happening, and get the hint. Like, for example, imagine, everybody's talking in a classroom and you and your friend are laughing your butts off, but the whole class has gone quiet. What do? You read the room, you see and you observe that the whole class has gone quiet, and you stop laughing. You don't know why you stop laughing. You have no clue why the whole class has gone quiet, but you don't ask that question. You read the room and you back off. And so I was like, I wish he could just read the room. And God said, you cannot expect people to respect a boundary that they don't even know is there. You cannot expect him. You cannot say that he's disrespecting you and crossing a boundary, and you've never actually told him about that boundary. And I'm so afraid of laying down boundaries. And I think that comes from a lack of respect for other people's boundaries in my life, because if I can't lay down boundaries because I'm afraid that it's going to offend people, then that ultimately means that when people lay down boundaries with me, I take it too personal and it affects me. And so what I do when something like that is done is reflecting on what I think they're going to do if I set boundaries, if that makes sense. And so I was like, God's like, you can't be afraid to set boundaries. This new version of yourself is bold. This new version of you says what they want, and they are not going to forfeit their peace to keep the peace, And I just, with this particular friend, I have not set any boundaries with him. And a big reason why is because he doesn't understand when people say things. Like, I'll say something and he'll take it in a totally different way, or he just doesn't understand. But it's not my job to make him understand. It's my job to tell him the boundary and keep bringing it up every time he crosses it. But to be honest, he has not disrespected me in any way or crossed my boundary in any way, because he just doesn't know that that boundary is there. And so it's really hard to start respecting myself, to stop judging myself. Like, even just wanting to set that boundary with him, I was judging myself. I was like, I don't know, maybe I'm just doing too much. Like, I don't know why I'm being so like, and it's like, no, that bothers you. He's in your personal space. Sometimes I write like a note to God if I can't really speak because it's in the classroom, or sometimes I'm working on personal things that God doesn't want me to tell the world that I'm working on. And so if he's constantly in my business, he's like in my personal space. Like, I have to dim down my lighting on my phone or on my laptop. I have to make up a reason why I'm writing this podcast description or whatever. And I have to hide these things because somebody doesn't know how to keep their space. And so God was telling me, you're not being over judgmental, over critical. You simply just don't like that. And that's okay. You don't have to like that. So it's really hard overcoming the enemy, which is me. And there's a bigger part to this, obviously, that I might just do a part 2 to this. But ultimately, one of my family members is a direct reflection of my old self. One of my family members is a direct reflection of who I used to be. And so I'm afraid to have her find out about my YouTube channel, or have her find out about my podcast, or have her find out about my TikTok, or have her find out that I have been doing art with art plus Jesus and teaching people about the gospel, because to be honest, she doesn't even know how deep I am in the faith. And I have 177 videos on YouTube, and I have been trying to hide this thing, and I've been hiding it for years. And I'm so afraid of her finding out about it. And God asked me, he said, what is the worst that could happen if she found out about it? And I said, she would judge me. And God told me, go read the story of David and Goliath. Now, I already read that story like a million times, but he told me to go back and read it and put myself, as my new self, as David, and my old self as Goliath. And Goliath is this huge giant, and all David has is a stone in his bag, and people are discouraging him not to try to fight Goliath, but he saw the reward that came from fighting Goliath, and he said, that's worth it. And on top of that being worth it, I have the God of the universe on my side. So I can't fail. There's no other ending to this rather than victory. There's no other ending. And so God said, if you want to face this judgment, if you want to defeat this old version of yourself once and for all, and cut its head off and throw it into the lake in this the lake of forgetfulness, the fire of destruction, then you need to face your Goliath. And that is uncomfortable, but it has to be done.